Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Bald Explorer Live for this afternoon on the 20th of May. It is 2020. I'm Richard Vobes, and we are reading another chapter, or part of a chapter, depending on how long the chapter is, from H.V. Morton, I Saw Two Englands. And welcome the lovely Julia. Turbo Stream, good afternoon. Michael Angel, Mike Stevens, and Jeff Kellison. It's my fault he's late. I thought he was taking the day off. Ha! Me? Take the day off? Yes, I've had a quick chat with Jeff. I've also tried to sort out my electricity and gas. I'm still being charged for gas. I don't use any gas. I've got an Essie that does all my heating and stuff. So I was trying to sort that out this morning and this afternoon, and that was an issue. And I had a lovely sweatshirt to take to Mr. Norris, Andrew Norris, and a letter to take to my friend Jeff Mahoney for his daughter's homework. That I did a little thing that they send you this little character and you take photographs, and I did all that and wrote a little letter, and I ran down to the post office, and I got there 1 minute after they close at 3. They close at 3. Would you believe it? And I said, oh, come on. I'm 1 minute late. Let me in. I've got a show to do. No, tough. So I'm very frustrated this afternoon. Very frustrated because I can't get down to the post office now for the next week or so because I shall be out filming in the mornings, and I've got to get back and edit and do stuff and then do these. So it's very frustrating. The world has not aligned itself today. However, I have managed to get over to the lovely Julia's, and I have cut her garden grass for her because her grass was up to here. And I said to her, you cannot let the kids play out on that. I will cut the grass, and I have cut the grass. And we did a bit of weeding, social distances and all that crap. And so now the kids can get out into the garden. So I feel that I have done something of worthwhile, and I've made a little video as well. Not a proper video, but a little video. And I've got a cup of tea, so welcome along. Greetings to Linda Kane. Hi, everyone is tickety. Hope everyone is tickety boo. Michael Angel, they stop for tea at 3. Oh, bloody post office. So poor old Andrew Norris is going to have to wait, and my mate Jeff Mahoney. And then, I know I shouldn't be ranting, but I'm getting it off my chest. My daughter gets £686 bill, council tax bill, for staying at my father's property when she was here 18 months ago. She left for New Zealand. She's not been there, and I've been paying the sodding bill in the time frame that they reckon. And now I've got to sort that out because we don't owe them that money. Georgie doesn't owe them that money. It's just bureaucracy gone mad. Hope you didn't run over the tortoise. No, I sat on the tortoise with a pair of scissors. It was the quickest way of doing it. The meadow was getting rather long. Yet telling me it was getting long. Anyway, Eric the tortoise has his own enclosure. One has freshly drawn coffee in my gaff. Adrian, I'm coming up. Janice Wallace, hello from Texas. Hello to you from Texas. So, sorry about being slightly late. Just been watching the interview with David Starkey. It's good when someone of his stature says what I've been thinking. And you know, Richard, and I know. Yeah, I watched an interview with David Starkey, and he thinks the whole thing is an absolute load of old rubbish. You probably heard that in The Naked Englishman. I watched that, and also, who's the other one? The other one who I listen to occasionally, who writes for the Sunday Times. Oh, what's his name? His brother was an atheist and died recently and challenged Dawkins. Oh, you know who I mean. What's his sodding name? I can't remember his name off the top of my head. Their brothers, one's now dead and he's still alive. The other brother made a lot of sense. Well, they both make sense in their own way. Hello to Willoughby Castle 00 Random Railway, new subscriber. Thanks for your enthusiasm and great videos. Can't wait to explore some of your walks. Regards, Fred. Fred, nice to meet up with you, Fred. Here on our live. On the live, we're doing a reading. Well, I will get cracking on it, but I've just had to get some stuff off my chest, as it were. And hello to Steve G. Nice to see you too. Right, so we've started on chapter 4. I enter Sussex. I go to Battle to see the field of Senlac. In Alfriston, I see a fine church, and in Lewes, I find the last ironworks in Sussex. Crossing the Downs, I come to Pycombe, where they make shepherd's crooks, and by way of pretty Fittleworth, I go to Bignor to see the Roman villa, and south to Arundel, and then Chichester. So we will see that. Hello to Joseph. What Christopher Hitchens? Yeah, Christopher Hitchens was the one who died, wasn't it? And what's his brother called? His brother. What's his brother called? Dellingpole does a good podcast. Yeah, listen to him. The Trigonometry. Do you listen to them? They're good. Hello to the regulars and to the new commentators. Yeah, what's his name? Hitchens. Yeah, the surviving Hitchens. I can't think of his name. So annoying. Yeah. Anyway, on with the show. So, did I read all this? Yes, I did. I read the first bit. Yeah, that's right. We had this rant. We had the Peter Hitchens. Yeah, thank you, Peter Hitchens. We had this rant about the how they've ruined Sussex. I remember that now. Yes. Okay. So, that's right. So I forgot for a moment. If the towns lived up to their names, that's right. We read this bit. Battle would be a place where men and women. Where men went red in the face with rage, gnashing their teeth and pushing people off the pavement. But in reality, it's one of the drowsiest and most peaceful little towns in Sussex. It had its share of cafes and antique shops, which established themselves in all places where visitors assemble. And the only danger likely to be encountered in Battle today is the price of the antiques. That's where we got to. Only in England, perhaps, could Battle Abbey become a girls' school. Indeed, it might seem to a foreigner to be one of the baffling inconsistencies of English life that the place where the future of England was changed should be devoted to the education of young ladies. For here, if anywhere, is a sacred national shrine. But when you approach the fine gateway of Battle Abbey, it is soon made clear to you that Battle is a girls' school first and a national shrine a long way after. Is that still the case? This book was written 80 years ago. Is that still the case? Is it still a girls' school? Does anybody know? That would be good. Ed Loud says, I'm hardly a regular. Yeah, okay, we got that joke. Rather chubby and I grow sideways a lot. Ding, ding. Prunes will help with getting you regular. There you go. Yes, is Battle Abbey a children's, a girls' school? That would be interesting. As you go in, he continues, it is true that the gatekeeper will ring a bell to summon a guide, but the guide may or may not appear. He did not appear for me. But better than any guide would be a few intelligently written notices near the site of the high altar and on the terrace which overlooks the scene of the Norman advance. It would be a compliment to the public if a little of the gate money were used for this purpose. I am sure now there is lots of interpretation boards, as they're now more modernly called. But 80 years ago, clearly there was very little to assist you. Excuse my slurping. The stranger is obliged to follow a visitor's route, which leads him here and there and round about. Now and again his meditations are pleasantly interrupted by maidenly cries of "Love 15" and the "phut" of a tennis ball against a racket. but the girls of Battle remain carefully invisible behind hedges. Morton Lewis says, sorry, I'm late. St. Trinian's is the only girls' school I know. What ho? Dear Vobe says, hello, Andrew Norris. I don't know whether you heard at the beginning. You probably didn't. I went to the post office to post your parcel with your sweatshirt in it. And it's the only chance I've had for bloody days and days and days. And I ran down there today, having done a whole load of other things. And I ran down there and I was 1 minute past 3 o'clock. And they had shut the doors. And the woman at the door would not let me in. I said, but I've got to get this to Croatia. No, you can't. I said, what happens if I just put it into a post box? If I just dump this in a post box unstamped, will it get to Croatia? No, it won't. So I've got it here, and I don't know when I can get to a post office, because I'm out filming in the mornings. I have to go out in the mornings. So I really don't know what I'm going to do. I got myself into a bit of a state over it. The Battle of Hastings was at Crowhurst, not Battle, says Michael Angel. Yeah, well, that is true, and my friend Julian Humphreys, who is an expert on battlefields, disagrees that is true, because although there was all that research by this one bloke who wrote a book, and he makes quite a good proceeds of that book, that's not necessary. Well, he believes, I don't know what the case is, but I've had a very long conversation with him about why he discounts it, and there isn't enough proof that is true. The monks tried to hoodwink the tacksman by saying that William the Conqueror had given them an exemption. Well, according to my friend Julian Humphreys, who is a far more educated man than I am and has been studying these things for a long time, there is a lot of this local myth that people would like it to be there, but there's a lot of things actually that, although on the face of it you could go, no, it must be where it was, but actually on the face of it, it looks like, it could be, it's plausible, but actually when you dig down, the evidence isn't strong enough to actually make the connection from what he says. So that's interesting. Hi, Linda. David Starker echoed Richard's podcast this morning. Then I absolutely agree. It's pretty much what he said, yeah. Mehmet Gosel, good afternoon to you. I probably mispronounced your name and I apologise for that. Yes, Richard, saw and answered your mail. Oh, yes, that's right. I forgot I'd emailed you. It's just a sodding pain. Ed Loud says, Richard, look out for a quaint old post office on your adventure. Well, if it had been yesterday and I had it all parcelled up, I could have gone into that one. I don't know if there's one in Hangleton. I'm going to Hangleton probably tomorrow, unless the weather breaks. I'm on chapter 4. Anybody following Off the Beaten Track will know where I'm going. But, and I don't want to do a spoiler, there is a video coming out tomorrow from the Bald Explorer, which is me, clearly, and there's a change in the weather. Not the weather as in, what do they call it? Meteorologically, not meteorologically, but I'm going to be doing something slightly different. You'll like it. You'll like what I'm going to be doing. You will like it. Red post boxes and telephone boxes. Yes, it might look pretty on film. Linda Kane, Richard, I'm coming to Worthing this time. I could pick up the parcel and get it to a post office. Oh, well, that's very kind of you, Linda. I can give you the money. I have no idea what it would cost, but I can leave a tenner or something in an envelope in my box with the parcel. If I know when you're coming, I'll just leave it in my box. You know where I live. Morton says that women is a job's worth and none of us. Well, they've moved the post. I'm supposed to be reading. They moved the post office into W.H. Smith's in Worthing. So she was just a worker of W.H. Smith's, and I don't know quite who owns what now. And she was the one on the door, and I couldn't get angry with her, but she just said, no, it's closed. And she worked for W.H. Smith's, and so presumably the people behind the counters had gone home. You know, they'd shut shop, and so there was nothing she could do. Linda Kane says, yes, yes is the answer. I listened to NE and seen the Starkey interview. Which woman? Oh, yes, the woman at the post office at the... Anyway, whatever. Right, let me carry on because we will be behind. Yes, as you go in, I've done all that. So, yes, I'm just curious about the girls' school, whether it's still a girls' school. Every schoolboy knows that Battle Abbey was built by William the Conqueror in fulfillment of a vow made before the Battle of Hastings. He did not like the look of the Saxon army, in spite of the fact that it might have been drinking and making merry the night before. It had a tough appearance as it stood on the well-chosen hill, and the conqueror vowed that should victory be granted him, he would endow an abbey on the battlefield. The abbey he built was a tremendous place, about a mile in area, and endowed with lands stretching for 3 miles around its walls. The abbot had a seat in Parliament, and among the abbey's privileges was the right to give sanctuary to all unhappy wretches and fugitives from justice who gained the safety of its doors. The abbey was pulled down by the orders of Henry VIII, but the foundations still remain, and it's possible to see where the altar stood and where the apse of the church ended. It's recorded that William chose for the high altar the exact place where Harold fell. I should like to see a notice here telling people that they're standing on the place where the Saxon army camped on an unlucky day, Friday, the 13th of October, 1066. There were roughly 12,000 of them, mostly rough countrymen, badly armed and ill-disciplined, slovenly, careless, but without fear. It is said that they drank and danced round their fires all night, crying boobly and wassail and laticum and drinkale, while in an opposing camp the Norman army confessed to its sins and attended mass. It seems that once, years before, Harold had sworn on the bones of a martyr not to contest William's claim to the English crown, and those relics the Duke had brought with him and now carried in the battle bag around his neck. His army was not much greater in numbers than Harold, but it was infinitely superior in weapons and theory of warfare. It was completely up to date. Even crossbows, which had just been invented, had a place in it. Most important of all, the Norman cavalry was the last word in shock tactics. In the hazy autumn morning of the 14th of November, the two armies faced each other over a mile of Sussex, Harold and his Saxons securely posted on the hill that ever after would be known as Battle, a forest behind them and steep slopes guarding his flanks. William and his Normans at Telham Hill, with the ground sloping down to Senlac Bottom, then up again to the place where the Saxons stood, shield to shield. They fought from 9 in the morning until the shadows of afternoon began to fall. Then victory came, not perhaps to the bravest, but to the most efficient. The Saxons fought as their ancestors had fought, on foot, behind a shield wall, but the Normans came charging at them on dray horses, crying, "Ra-roo, ha-roo," or some such thing, and hurtling spears before they hacked at the footmen with their swords. As twilight fell, the last desperate fight was waged around the Red Dragon of Wessex, where Harold and his thanes died, one by one. Duke William pitched his tent among the dead on the hill. That must have stank. Pitched his tent among the dead on the hill of battle. 3 horses had been killed under him, yet he was unhurt. And on this tragic field he marked out the great abbey that was to rise there in order that God's pardon may be asked for the blood that had been shed there. If you walk down from the place of the high altar and come to the terrace, you will see a few fields, some cows grazing, and trees. A quiet English scene. I wonder if those cows are still there 80 years after Morton wrote his book. It was across those fields that the Normans charged to victory, and it seems strange that the destiny of England could have been settled in a few small meadows. What a noise the Battle of Hastings has made in the world, yet what a minor brawl it was. What minor brawls all wars were. What minor brawls all wars were in ancient times. A few men trying to kill each other in a meadow. It's only today, when man calls himself civilized, that the whole nations go to war and even include their women and children in it. And he was writing that in 1939, aware that down on the south coast, all along from Kent all the way round to Dorset pretty much, that we were on the front line. Women and children and the elderly on the front line when the Nazis were threatening to invade. And we were, at that point, I guess, all on our own. Because Europe had been blackened by the goose-stepping Nazis. Hello to everybody else who's just joined in. We'll just have a quick look at some of the additional comments. What have we got here? I'll reimburse you the postage. No, you don't need to reimburse me the postage. I have no problem with the postage. Yes is the answer. I listened to yes, blah, 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 blah. Andrew Norris, the post office lady refusing to... Oh, yes, that's it. Yes. Oh, her, yes, no, one of us. What? Our post office is in a chemist shop, says Judith. Nice. Linda Kane says post office is a separate entity. Apparently the PO is reducing hours due to workload, especially parcels. Was speaking to someone at my local PO. Yeah, so what's the point? I don't understand that. Where's the logic? That's like the bloody mayor of London, whatever his stupid name is, who decided that when we needed social distancing from people and people, essential workers, needed to go to work, he would reduce the number of trains when actually you needed to spread people out on more trains and more space. But no, no, I'm going to reduce the thing. And the same with the post office, the same nonsense is going on there then. It's like more people don't want to go to the shops, so few people want to do that. So there are a larger number of parcels that need to be posted. So what do the post office do? Close down the hours. Oh, we don't want to be working hours to make life easy for people because they've got more parcels to post. So instead, people have got to get jostled shoulder to shoulder instead of being socially distanced apart because the hours that they operate are curtailed. What is wrong with the country? What is wrong with the world? It just drives me mad. Would that be Michael Bublé? Yes, I think Michael Bublé was in the melee of the Battle of Hastings. Michael Angel says that was Norman propaganda that the Saxons drank before the battle. They were cream-crackered from their march from Stamford Bridge. That's right, all the way from the Chelsea ground, if I remember correctly. And it had been a very bad game up there with Chelsea. Oh, no, the Stamford Bridge in Yorkshire, that's what you mean. Yes, exactly. They were knackered from that. That's quite right. The housecarls were a match even for any night, indeed. Michael Angel, I'm with you. I think the Normans overrated. Have you seen the lady who is doing a life-size replica of the Bayeux tapestry? I haven't seen that. That sounds interesting. Rants in the pants, love it, says Ed Loud. That's got me started earlier. They have a man on the gate of the cemetery near me. Madness. Well, what do they think people are going to do? Go and bury their dead in advance? That's the most peculiar thing I've ever heard. It's like, oh, Granddad's gone now, so or Grandma or whoever. No, I suddenly thought Ed Loud. But, the relation is gone, and it's like, oh, we'll just go and take him down to the local cemetery and just have him interred ourselves. So they've got a man on the cemetery to stop people going in with spades and shovels, I suppose. Linda Kane says, presumably it's the sorting office with social distancing. Oh, I see. Yes, the sorting office. Not only parcels, Richard. What about the vulnerable OAPs going for their pensions? Yes, of course. They need all this time, and then they don't understand how the internet works because it was before their time. They just retired. They just retired at 65 when the internet came in 20 years ago. And now that 65 said 85, there they are going, well, we never really understood. We never really understood what the internet was. Everyone says it's online. They're all fishermen, aren't they? They must be fishermen, these internet people. No. Although apparently a lot of people on the internet do go fishing with a PH. Not a PhD. Anyway, Wilbur Castle says, an emotional reading now and a great rant. I love it. I love it. My back doesn't. Oh, right. Sorry about that. Oh, my eye today is stinging. I don't know why. Sting, sting, sting. Right, let's we must do some reading on this show. It's already 26 minutes past 4. Where the hell was I? Oh, yes. We got to... man calls himself civilized. Oh, yes, there we go. When I returned to the entrance, the gatekeeper was waiting for me. And during my absence, he had learned my name. You're one of the old families, sir, he said waggishly. You must see your name on the roll. He led me to an illuminated parchment, which is framed beneath the arch, and running his finger down, stopped at the name Morton. This was the Battle Abbey roll, and for the first time I knew that I had come over with William the Conqueror. You'll be surprised, he said, by the number of people who come to see their names in the roll. They come from all parts, even America. Unfortunately for us noble Normans, the Battle Abbey roll is not what it pretends to be, a list of William's followers compiled from Doomsday and other contemporary material does not agree with it at all. Still, the gatekeeper of battle was always glad to recognise an old boy. I'm sure he was. I left the admirable town of Eastbourne with the intention of visiting the long man... Wait a minute, I left the admirable town of Eastbourne. Linda Kane, you've got the full text of this. This is the abridged version. Clearly he goes from Battle to Eastbourne, but that's not in here. There's this paragraph or page is missing. So we'd now pick up from where he left the admirable town of Eastbourne with the intention of visiting the Long Man of Wilmington. I've made a video there, by the way. As I approached him, rain began to fall and continued to fall with such vehemence that the Long Man was blotted from view. Still, for a moment I saw him in white against the downland, an immense figure 240 feet in length, walking with a staff in each hand. Like the white horse on the Berkshire Downs and the centre of Cerne Giant and the Cerne Giant in Dorset, whom he greatly resembles, but without the big phallic symbol, the Long Man of Wilmington is an outline figure formed by the removal of the downland turf. Who first removed the turf is one of the mysteries of England. The figure has been attributed to ancient Britain, Dane, Saxon and medieval monk, but no one seems to know why one or other of these people should have gone to the trouble of putting the Long Man on the hill. I think they found that he was actually erected in the 18th century. Until 65 years ago, the figure's outline was merely a shallow trench on the downs, and the Long Man was visible in those days only early in the morning or at sunset, when an oblique light fell upon him, or during the thaw in the winter, when the snow lay longer in the trenches than on the surrounding grass. But in 1874, enthusiasts outlined the Long Man in white bricks, thus making him one of the famous landmarks of Sussex. I went on to that pretty bit of country where the Cuckmere winds through the meadows. I went on to that pretty bit of country where the Cuckmere winds. I was going to say, where the Cuckmere which is a river, winds through meadows to the seas, the meanders, of course, and overlooking the stream I saw a fine flint church at Alfriston, and the pretty village, which is one of the most delightful and best known in the whole of Sussex, and probably also one of the most busiest with traffic trundling through it, although he is writing in 1940s when probably they couldn't get petrol and so there's so few traffic going through. People go there in their thousands in the summer to see how beautiful and how natural an old Sussex village can be. I have no doubt that Alfriston is too many of them a sentimental haven, the ideal village which most Englishmen keep in their hearts. Without appearing to be deliberately antique, Alfriston lives up to its reputation with dignity and grace. The old houses gaze at each other across the narrow street with self-consciousness, like old people who have done their job in life but are by no means in the grave. Indeed, from their willingness to provide tea and sell fudge, it is clear that the old houses of Alfriston fully appreciate the profit to be made from those who are so starved of beauty that they will go miles to look at a thatch. It's true, that's so true. The Star of Alfriston is one of the best medieval inns in England. An old striped house with an overhanging story and a roof of patinated Horsham stone. It is said that it once belonged to Battle Abbey and was a pilgrim's rest house on the road to the shrine of St. Richard of Chichester. I should think that it's very likely so, for the star, without the garter or the crown, is an ancient religious symbol, though not the star of the Magi, or the Magi, I think that ought to be. It was the medieval symbol of the Virgin, just as the pole star was the symbol of the church, a sign that generally carried with it the motto in Latin, "He who does not look at me goes astray." And I should carry that motto in my heart. He who does not watch the Bald Explorer goes astray. I don't mean to be too egotistical, but I think that is something that one could take with one. I was surprised by the size and shape of St. Andrew's Church. I was surprised by the size and shape of St. Andrew's Church in Alfriston, a splendid flint church in the form of a Greek cross. Well, it's cruciform, isn't it? Byzantine it is. It is not, like so many old churches, a mass of architectural styles, but is the creation of one period, about 1370. I have rarely seen so fine a large country church with so few tombs in it worth looking at. But it has something even more interesting. It is one of the few churches in England, I think there are not more than 3, that you can see the hooks that used to hold the Lenten veil. I don't know what that is. In pre-Reformation days. Have you ever seen the Lenten veil? Show me the Lenten veil! I must see the Lenten veil! In the days of the Roman Catholic England, a veil, here we go, we're going to find out. In the days of Roman Catholic England, a veil which hid the altar from the congregation was hung in churches during Lent, not during Borrow, I noticed. It was drawn only during the reading of the Gospel at Mass and on Saturdays, and remained in position from the first Sunday in Lent until Wednesday in Holy Week. How old was this custom can only be guessed when King Alfred in the year 878 imposed a fine of 20 shillings as the penalty for tearing down the Lenten veil. I will tear it down. 20 shillings to you, my man. Oh, I won't pull it down then. Good. It is probable that the veils were a relic of the once universal custom of hiding the altar, not only in Lent, but all the year, a custom which the Eastern Church still observes. Anyone who's attended a Greek or Armenian, Syrian or a Coptic Mass will recollect that the altar is hidden by a permanent wooden screen with a small central opening, and that At the moment of consecration, the deacon pulls a curtain across it so that the celebrant is concealed from the congregation. Very much like David Copperfield or any other magician would put something around them. Perhaps the master of escapology, Harry Houdini, did exactly the same before climbing into a great big tank of water, hiding the magic that goes on. Perhaps that's where they get that concept from. Who knows? The Lenten veil was in the Western Church and was perhaps the last memory of the iconostasis or screen, which was once common to the whole of Christendom, and Alfriston should be proud of this relic. I'm sure it is. In the north wall of the chancel, I noticed another interesting thing, a deep niche, rather like a tomb, which bears at the side the sculptured figure of a curled-up dog, and at the other end the head of a woman. In an excellent little sixpenny guide, which I bought in Alfriston, it suggested that this niche may be the tomb of the founder, but it is nothing of the kind. It is an Easter sepulchre. I can never say that word. And this, again, takes us back to the rites of the Roman Church. The sculptured figure of a curled-up dog. Oh, okay. It was the custom on Maundy Thursday, when the altar was stripped, the images shrouded. It was the custom on Maundy Thursday, when the altar was stripped, the images shrouded, and the whole church in mourning, for the priest to place the sacrament in a tabernacle and carry it in possession to the recess in the north wall of the chancel. Members of the congregation watched beside it day and night. Then the priest would come early in the morning on Easter Sunday, and taking up the host, would go to the altar singing the anthem, "Christ is risen!" Now, it's interesting because I never went to church. I never really understood what church was when I was younger. And now that I'm interested in churches, and I am interested in all these rites and things that go on from a purely historical and heritage point of view, they talk of these things, this language that people who go to church and people of a certain age will understand and know, of which I struggle when I read history books, particularly older history books. So, for example, it talks of the sacrament. I don't fully understand what the sacrament is. A tabernacle, I don't really know what a tabernacle is. And then it talks about things like the meta-transformation or whatever it is. I don't know what that is. And then the host. What is the host? And they bandy this language. It's just the same as in the corporate world when they use all that stupid blue sky thinking, customer facing, going forward, all that same sort of buzzwords. And it's a little coded stuff that I don't understand. Christ has risen. I understand that. This beautiful custom, which is still observed in the Roman Church, is seen also in the famous forms of the Eastern Church. It is a symbol of the entombment and the resurrection. The Greeks, the Syrians, the Armenians, and the Copts each have their own traditional rite. On Maundy Thursday and Good Friday, some of them buy an icon or a crucifix in a coffin, and some of them place a picture of Jesus in rose leaves, and these are brought forth in triumph on Easter Sunday to shouts of joy. Joy! Joy! Presumably trying to get the attention of the woman whose lions she tamed, Joy Anderson. Joy! Joy! Your lions are free! Born free as you can be, as free as a thingamajig. I love that tune. It's a great tune. Great film. The rain was still beating against the windows and gurgling into the gutters, so I settled down in the church to read my sixpenny History of Alfriston, 7th edition, and first published by the author Florence Pageon, Mrs. Humphrey Florence Pageant, brackets, Mrs. Hubert Winstanley, in 1899. I wonder how many topographical books we'll read as well as this did in 49 years' time. Well, who knows? I learned that Alfriston, despite its descriptive air of innocence, was once a desperate place for smugglers. Why, the doctor's sin. Ha ha ha. The famous gangster of the period was named Stanton Collins, who had a feud with Mr. Brooker. It appears that Mr. Brooker, who also had his weaknesses, fell in love with his deceased wife's sister, and so horrified the minister of the chapel, a worthy man called Mr. Betts, that he refused to solemnize the marriage. I don't know what you do when you solemnize a marriage. Mr. Brooker, who was a person of power and influence, deposed the minister by the simple process of carrying early for chapel. Sorry, I'll read that again. Mr. Brooker, who was a person of power and influence, deposed the minister by the simple process of arriving early for chapel and placing an itinerant preacher in the pulpit. Poor Mr. Betts arrived to take the service and found his rival there before him, and he sensibly made no fuss, but took a seat in the pew and waited to see what would happen. It quickly happened, or rather, it happened quickly. I've transposed the words. Stanton Collins and these boys, drinking over at the George, heard what had happened, and scenting an excellent chance to get even with Mr. Brooker, broke into the chapel, dragged the alien preacher out of the pulpit, and reinstated poor Mr. Betts, demanding that he should resume the service while they stood guard about him. Poor Mr. Betts sounds like poor Mr. Grace, doesn't it? You're doing very well. Mr. Betts gave out the hymn, God Moves in Mysterious Ways. Is that a hymn? Is that a hymn? God moves in mysterious ways? Oh, God moves in mysterious ways. He once was a member of the Ministry of Silly Walks. Oh, God moves in mysterious ways. You should see him flying on the seabed. Oh, God moves in mysterious waves and mysterious waves. I said to God, he moves in mysterious waves, a bit like a sign language. Sign language? I was trying to do a sine wave. Anyway, it doesn't matter. I think I'll just pause there and just catch up with some of the stuff, because I've gone into a slightly bonkers mood. Let's go back quite a bit. So, grave robbers have a lot in common with the tax man. They take everything. That's true. Presumably the sorting of... Oh, yes, we've got up to there. So I have gone back a bit. I can't remember what life was like before the Bald Explorer, says Michael Angel. Yes, there was no life before that. Morton Lewis says the holy hand of Grenade of Antiloch Antoch. It sounds like it's like a cross between a loch, as in Loch Ness somewhere, and I can't pronounce it. I'm not even going to try. The pretty dull life for me, says the lovely Julia, pre-Bald Explorer. Ah, lovely Julia. What a lovely thing to say. Graham Cass, I'm a newbie. Took to this like a duck to water. Graham Cass, you are very welcome. I hope I've pronounced your name correctly. You are very, very welcome to this slightly mad world where we read books and get a bit overexcited. Well, some of us do. It's a hard job keeping you to calm down, to be fair. It really is. I've forgotten what an unobserved tree hug feels like. Yes, I'm sure. Richard is a heretic, says Morton Lewis. Oops. Have I let this thing slip? I thought I was Simon Templar, you know. Tin tabernacles, French, known them as pissoirs. Is that right, Richard? It's language designed to make the religious leaders sound important, says TurboStream. Yeah, exactly. That's all Catholic and Orthodox theology. Yeah. Tabernacle is a small ornate box on the altar where the host is kept. So what is the hell is the host? The host is the bread that is used in communication along with the wine. So what do? Is they've got I could make some bread for that. Is it like a puppet? You go, all right, everyone, I am the host. Hello. I'm well bred, you know. I come from a very nice family. Yes, you're very well bred, aren't you? Oh, yes, you can have both of me. No racial problems because you can have white bread and brown bread. Oh, yes, and actually, after the time you've eaten me, no doubt you will be brown bread and pushing up daisies. All right, Mr. Host, in your box, back in your tabernacle. Anybody is insulted by anything I say, please go and see a doctor. I'm not aiming to insult you if you are of religious nature, but I just can't help it. Andrew Norris says, also, Dan, the only two poles needed. The human eye becomes the third pole. Right. Mike Stevens says, and the sacrament is the sacred taking of the bread and the wine. So is that there's somebody who nicks it then and comes in when nobody's looking, you know, probably a cat burglar, down a drain pipe, got the bread. So he's taken the bread and nipped off, and the priest comes out to his tabernacle and goes, and now we'll have a word with the host. And out comes the bread going, hello and welcome to the show. It's another day. Hello, good evening and welcome. I'm David Frost, your host, the host with the most. And I'm in a oast house making myself into bread. And on today's show, I will be interviewing a few people who will be less interesting than me. I'm David Frost, back into my tabernacle. He's dead now, isn't he, David Frost? He was a laugh. I met David Frost, I think, when I was a security guard at TVAM in my long-distance past. Dan Ludlow says, maybe gives us more weight to the ley line theory for the long man. I remember the background music was used tubular bells. Very apt. Entertaining, anyway. Oh. Linda Kane says, solemnize to perform a ceremony using a marriage. Is that where solemn comes from? Is that solemnized and solemn? Oh dear, it's good to see you've cheered up a bit, Richard. Yes, I know, I've gone the opposite way now. John Buck, the host, thank you, nice to see you, John Buck. The host is the bread wafer that represents Christ in the breaking of the bread. It gets worse, doesn't it? It gets worse. So you can't actually have a loaf of bread. You've now got to have a wafer. I mean, it just like a little wafer. A wafer. We have in France, we have a wafer of bread à host. Oh la la, how are you in there, you little man, you little tiny host in your little box? A wafer is nothing, 'cause between the two wafer you can have some ice cream, I suppose. Monty Python, yes. Solemnize is basically to give churches approval to any ceremony. I told you, it's all gobbledygook. Jeff Kellison says, I've always been pro-socialized... what? I've always been pro-socialized medicine until I hear stories of what they expect a poor man like Vobes to pay. Yes, exactly. Graham Crass... Was it Graham Crass? Graham Crass, you'll find that B becomes addictive. Yeah, at first you get shocked and go, what am I watching? Then somehow the 5G effect, The hypnotic effect. You will come back. You will come back. I'd hear you. You see, the reason I'm bald is I let my hair down so much, I think it jumped off my head and ran for it. As soon as it had an opportunity, it went, I'm out of here. Here, Andrew Norris, says the lovely Julia. Ha, I'll fill in the gaps for you in the debrief, read the polls and the host. Thank you. Andrew Norris says, thanks, TLJ. Richard will need an explanation. I need more than that. I need hospitalisation. J.W. Harville says, many believe socialised medicine means free healthcare. Ah. Well, I thought it was just medicines that all got together in the medicine cupboard at the back and had a bit of a party. And some said, hey, you want to try me? Go on, have some. I've got some quanticlinky cosine in me. Oh, quanticlinky cosine, that sounds nice. I've got cortisone flibbity flum flubbers in me. Oh, let's swap boxes. Just for a laugh. Rattle it up a bit. Ed Loud says, not all bread comes in loaves. Much of it is unleavened bread. Unleavened. Unleavened? Unleavened. Uneven, even. My bread comes out uneven. So, and comes out the oven, even. It even comes out the oven. We're pushing that one now. Dan Ludlow, hello to you. Once upon a time, practically everywhere was wooded, and somehow ley lines were drawn straight. Near here is a place on a hill where 3 spired churches can be seen in a line. I have got a book. I've got a book up here. The old straight lines. I've got a book here. The old straight track by the man who invented the ley line, Alfred Watkins. It's mounds, beacons, moats, sites, and mark stones. And it could tell you about sun alignment. Where I lived in Horsham, there was Sun Alliance, but that's a different thing. They were insurance things. The sighted track, mark stone. When you read his book, he actually makes more sense than the latter interpretation of ley lines with all his stupid energy forces that they claim. That Mark English goes on about, Mr. Withercue. Yes, so anyway, Linda Kane says, when I was young, the wafer was about the diameter of a 2-bob bit, if you remember them. Not sure now. I think that they just break up bread rolls. Well, I think that would be much better. Oi, you lot, come on, snap out of it. Come on now, break it up. You, leave him alone. Get over there, get back on your own. You go back in the oven, you're not even cooked. Yeah, you're going in the lockup, you are. Yeah, break them up a bit, that's what I say. Morton says, can either of you recommend a decent book on ley lines? Yes. As if by magic I have a book here. This is a good book on ley lines. It is the original, The Old Straight Track by Alfred Watkins. Which is that's the original. And then he got interpreted by somebody else who wrote a follow-up. But I think he was onto something, Watkins, with his straight line principle. Personally. And I wanted to do a video about that. And I was going to go where he did it, all around Herefordshire, where he was doing his things. So I would think that is good. Stop going to church in my teens. Well done, Linda Kane. There is an unproven, unsatisfactory theory that bald blokes like myself have all their hair inside their head. Yes, which is sort of why sometimes I get fur balls, because the hair is growing down the throat. Yes, the old straight track. There you go. Richard is showing us now. Ha ha. Cheers, Richard. My pleasure. The original theory by the chap who discovered Alfred Watkins. Alfred Watkins. That's what you want. Then other people just jumped on the bandwagon, I think. Where were we? We're almost time up, and I barely read anything, but that's okay. I'm going to just read a tiny bit more. Where the hell did I get to? Oh, he's reading the history of Alfriston. There are one or two excellent pen pictures in this book. During the incumbency of one of our numerous vicars, says the author in a comedy voice at the corner of my mouth, an old woman was employed to ring the bell for the weekday services, and an odd sight it was. She was a masculine-looking woman, very tall and thin, her face, drawn into a perfect network of wrinkles, was surrounded by a poke bonnet. Her gaunt figure attire in a dress of faded green rep curtain and an apron of coarse sacking, which was tied at the waist and knees. The bell being heavy each time she pulled the rope, she was lifted off the ground. So I'll read that again because it's a bit more comical. The bell being heavy, each time she pulled the rope, she was lifted off the ground, displaying, thus at intervals, a pair of beautifully clean white stockings and men's hobnail boots. Her severe expression and loud grating voice caused her to be spoken of as repulsive, but as I knew her, she was ever so good and kind-natured. Ever so kind-natured she was, as she disappeared up the chimney, up the belfry, bang, whoa! Helper! Helper! I need a helper! Get me down! The sun appearing as miraculously as it did, I took the lane behind the church and, crossing a bridge over the Cuckmere, went up a curved field to Lullington, which boasts the smallest church in England. And you can actually hear it say that if you put your ear to the ground and listen very carefully. The smallest church in England. I've made a video of Lullington as well. This is not quite honest. No, it's not actually. Because it is not a church at all, but only a 16-foot long chancel of a church. Give us a chancel. Give us a chancel, mate. We're trying to be the smallest church in England. We're doing our best. We got rid of the nave. We got rid of all the transepts. We're just a little chancel. Give us a chancel, mate. Come on. Doesn't actually say that, surprisingly. Yes, so this is not quite honest because it's not the church at all, but only the 16-foot chancel of a church. The rest of the building having vanished in some cataclysm. Oh my, the place is tumbling down. I believe that the smallest church, and of course I mean a complete church, is that of Culbone, near Porlock in Somerset, where they talk like that, see? It's in Porlock, isn't it? That's where it is, down there in Porlock, which, if I remember rightly, is about 35 feet by 12 feet, and I am sure Sussex cannot beat that. Oh, no. Still, Lullington, among its buttercups and the big rain clouds curving overhead, and Alfriston with its beautiful old houses and its church, are the kind of places that makes one thankful to be alive in England. Though not in Peacehaven, where they have ruined Sussex, ruined it with their bungalows and bungalows, same in Goring, bungalow after bungalow after bungalow after bungle up the design and killing of the lovely thing that we had in Sussex. I will leave it there, I think. I think that's it. I think we're up to 5 o'clock and I need to crack on. I need to get the Essie lit. I hope you enjoyed that very serious rendition of today's video. I will be back at some other time this evening to do a Vogue show, which is fast becoming a more saner and serious programme than this. This is supposed to be a serious reading of a classic book. I'll probably find that the author or the publisher are going to come back and say, Mr. Vobes, while we may not mind you reading the book, it'd be nice if you read it more sensibly than actually how you do read it. You seem to be upsetting the audience and insulting any religious person who comes along. Plus the fact you're making comedy voices out of characters who didn't actually appear in the book in that way at all. But hey, what else have we got here? Jeff Kellison, you guys are talking about bread, and I'm driving a commercial. I am driving by a commercial bakery that smells wonderful. Oh, lovely. Dan Ludlow says, there you go, there's something in it, I reckon. Straight lines before the Romans. There you go. You see, the Romans nicked that idea from Alfred Watkins. Turbo Stream says, those churches bread things taste awful, as I remember. Yeah, who wants to? Why not have some real bread? You would just imagine that somebody, some little old lady could say, I can bake the bread for you, rather than have those funny dried things that you're using. Wafer, mademoiselle, it is a wafer, you ignorant person. I'm not an ignorant person, thank you very much. I've got a PhD in chemistry, I have you know. But I have a PhD in wafer. Anyway, only 7 thumbs up. Don't forget, only 7 thumbs up. I've got here 10 concurrent viewers and no likes at all. No likes on my screen. Nobody likes me. Nobody likes me. Nobody loves me anymore. Thanks, Richard. Another enjoyable reading. Yeah, well, hardly enjoyable. Excellent, very funny today. I'd had to work off my frustration. This is a very serious literary salon, and we love it. Yes, very serious indeed. Great fun, Richard. Thanks for all your entertaining enthusiasm. Well, do you know, I guess we learnt something, didn't we? We learnt something about the Normans and the Battle of Hastings. We learnt a little bit about the smallest church in Sussex. We learnt about the long man in Wilmington. We've had a right old laugh. Nice bit of toast and butter would be much nicer. Yes, actually, do you know, I'm getting hungry now. I'm going to rustle up something to eat. Says 13 likes on mine. Oh, right. Mine perhaps just hasn't updated. I've just put a thumbs up, says Morton. Thank you very much. 16, says Linda Kane. Brilliant. Linda, what's the best thing to do about this parcel? I've got one to go to America as well, but I just think you might be just stick stamps on it, but it's just an envelope, just a simple envelope. It's got to go to America. I don't suppose you could post that one as well. If I leave you the money in another envelope, just let me know when you're coming and I'll shove it in my box. That's probably the best. So there we go. Anyway, thank you so much and take care. Have a nice rest of the afternoon. I'll be back at 8 o'clock. We've got some videos coming in, so that's nice. And I look forward to seeing you then. Take care, look after yourself, and toodle pip for now. Bye-bye. Goodbye, dear. Oh, who said that? Goodbye.